YouTube, what is up? James MTG Biggie here, and I'm going to preface this video by apologizing ahead of time for my voice. If I sound a little nasally, a little Kermit the Frog-like, it's because I've been sick for the last week or so, which is part of the reason there hasn't been a new video in a little bit. I intended on making one after the PPTQ I played a couple Sundays ago, but haven't got around to it. Mostly because of work and being sick. So here we are, and I finally felt up to making a video and up to talking on camera, I guess. So anyway, this is going to be a basic update video. The video I was gonna make after the PPTQ was gonna be a general sort of discussion on the limited environment of Masters 25, because the PPTQ was sealed Masters 25. But being that that ship has kind of sailed a little bit, I'm going to discuss the PPTQ and how it went and my impressions of Masters 25 sealed and limited in this video. But we're going to talk about some more stuff too, so bear with me. Another thing out the gate, in my absence, in the time there hasn't been some videos here in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've gained some subs, so I appreciate it. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy some of the content around here. That being said, I'll jump right into it. So I played in a PPTQ locally here, and trying to qualify for the RPTQ that qualifies for the Team Pro Tour. And this is the 5th PPTQ I've played in, and this time around I made top 8 again. Right now, of the 5, I've made 2 top 8s. I lost a win-in for top 8, and then I scrubbed out pretty hard on the other 2. So I have a pretty decent record. We're like 2-2-1 basically, if we're counting like the middle performance as the as like the draw or whatever, or the median, and then a couple top 8s. It's surprising to me because I don't think of myself as a great limited Magic player. I don't draft or play a lot of sealed other than like pre-release weekend. But I got to play in Masters 25 sealed, and I opened my card pool, and my card pool was really good. And I think I built a fairly optimal deck for what I was given. And I got to take it out pretty much easy mode. I started 3-0 and was able to double draw in rounds 4 and 5 to a top 8. So it couldn't have gone any better in the Swiss. My deck was pretty insane. For those who haven't yet, follow me on Twitter. I actually posted a couple photos of my sealed and my draft deck in the top 8. So that's a good place to catch these little updates and catch the like Cliff Notes version, the TLDR version of it on Twitter ahead of time. Because I do talk about tournament results and stuff like that on Twitter before they go into being a video here. So if you haven't, follow at MTG Biggie on Twitter. But my pool looked something along these lines. I opened it up and immediately knew that I was going to be base black just because of the insane removal package I opened. I ended up with 3 murders, a Diabolic Edict, a Disfigure, and a Ravenous Chupacabra. So I had an abundance of removal, all the possible removal I wanted. I even think I opened like a Swords to Plowshares in white, and my white wasn't that deep to support it, so I decided not to play the white, and then I had plenty of removal in black. Beyond that, the bombs that I sort of had in my packs were Rurik Thar and Master of the Wild Hunt. So I knew I wanted to play green at least, and maybe splash for red just to be able to cast Rurik Thar. So I basically ended up Jund heavier in the black than the red and the green. my deck was nuts. The removal package worked out incredibly well. When I touched into red, I got to play Rorik Thar, and I also got to play a main deck Pyroclasm. So I had main deck sweepers. I had huge bombs, a ton of removal. It worked out really, really well. I also had a couple there's not really synergies so much in the format. It felt like there's just a bunch of little 2 to 3 card combos. I had an Arbor Elf with a Caustic Tar, which was really cute and funny, and I got to set up one time throughout the tournament, but it's totally worth it. And then I keep wanting to call it Comet Storm, but it's not Comet Storm. It's a 7 mana, red and 6, deal 7 damage to a creature or player. I opened 3 of those. I played one of them, which I think ended up working out alright. I got to, at one point, kill my opponent from 13 with the Caustic Tar Arbor Elf combo plus the 7 damage spell, which felt really, really good. So that was the Swiss portion. I played against some talented players that had, I think, reasonable decks, but my deck just felt better than everybody else's I was playing against. I, like I said, rolled through the Swiss, and then the draft portion came, which I was not as confident in my abilities going in to draft. I think most players who are competent can open a sealed pool and identify the good cards and the bad and build a curve. Drafting is harder because you have to be mindful of your curve as you're taking cards. You have to be able to read your seat well and move into the colors and take the cards that are being given to you and that are best suited for your seat and your deck. And I think I did pretty well there. I would like to think of my draft deck as pretty powerful, pretty optimal for the seat I was in. I ended up in blue-white, and I had just every evasive creature possible. That was kind of my theory going in, was just to bring it back to basics, draft theory. Evasion's really good, so I just drafted flyers the whole draft. I had a couple Storm of Crows. I had the 1 mana dude from, I believe, Starter Edition, that whenever it blocks a creature, it and the creature it blocks die. So that was some pretty solid early game to slow down things on the ground. I had a couple pacifisms. I had a Blue Sun Zenith that fit right into my colors. I had Cloud Blazer. Like, I had a pretty good curve of flyers and a pretty good deck, I think. The trouble was, in the quarterfinals, the first round of the top 8, I made a play that cost me the whole tournament, I think, in my mind. It certainly cost me that round. I made a major punt, and it wasn't one of those things that, like, you think of in the moment. It wasn't one of those things that I played around properly. It was just, I was at 10 life. I had a lethal, unblockable attacker, Mystic of the Hidden Way, on board, and my opponent was at 2. And they get 1 attack step, and they have a Twisted Abomination and a Morph to attack with. And I'm sitting with Choking Tethers in my hand. My opponent asked to go to combat. They announced that they're going to combat. And now I knew that I had the Choking Tethers in my hand. I knew that the correct play was to cast the Choking Tethers. But my opponent's like, go to combat, and just without, like, pause, just out of sort of habit, out of muscle memory, I guess, I was like, okay. And then they attacked with both their creatures, and I was like, oh no. I let them go to combat. I should have tapped down their team and took my turn and win the game. Well, turns out the Morph that my opponent had, because for a split second I was like, well, okay, I'm only taking 7 from a Morph and a Twisted Abomination. Turns out the morph I had was Vesuvian Shapeshifter, and he 10'd me out of nowhere. That was game 1. I went on to win game 2 really quickly and easily. Almost like embarrassingly quick. I had a perfect curve of creatures and was able to aggressively attack with flyers and win very easily. Which obviously, had I not punted away that play in game 1, I would have won and moved on to the semifinals. Unfortunately, we didn't get there, and it's completely my fault. So another thing that I meant to talk about and make a video of was maybe dealing with punts, dealing with poor plays on your part, and dealing with how to come back from that and how to handle it. And my my only advice that I could give anybody, as somebody who is very amateur with Magic, I've been playing a long time, but I still got a lot to learn and a lot of reps to get in before I consider myself a great player or whatever. Be hard enough on yourself to not make those mistakes again, but move on from them. That's about it. You can't let those punts put you on tilt too hard, especially in the middle of a tournament. Mine ended my tournament, so I didn't have the opportunity to go on tilt and screw up more, luckily, I guess. But don't let plays like that put you too far onto tilt. Acknowledge them, blame yourself enough, but you gotta move on. That's it. Aside from that, the limited environment Masters 25 seems decent. I kind of liked it. It was fun. It's sort of a very basic draft format in that, like, if you just follow the simplistic, like, take removal, get a bomb or two, prioritize having enough removal, and try to have a legitimate, like, smooth enough curve, you'll do pretty well. There's not any major synergies or archetypes to go into. There's a bunch of small combos throughout the format that you kind of see as you go, and a lot of people were talking about a lot of them. The one I had, the Arbor Elf Caustic Tar or whatever, was cute, and it was effective. And so you'll see stuff like that along the way, which is cool, but if you just have removal and some big dudes and a decent, 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 drop curve, you'll do well. And for somebody that doesn't draft often, I often have to lean on that. The whole, like, the bread philosophy where you take bombs removal, etc., etc. There's 100 YouTube videos on that method for beginners. But as somebody who doesn't draft enough or doesn't look into limited enough to be able to identify archetypes or to think about synergies as you're drafting, it helps to have a format where you can lean on that very base knowledge of take big dudes in removal and fill out your curve and you'll be okay. So I kind of don't mind that draft environment because as a dude that doesn't draft a lot, it worked out for me. Either way, aside from that, I've played a bunch of Modern lately. I went to a local store here and got to play 1 week or one tournament of Modern where I played Death and Taxes again after taking a little hiatus from it. Excuse me, my voice is getting a little raspy. Let me take a drink. But I played some Death and Taxes and had a really rough go of it. I got paired twice against Affinity, once against Elves, and then once against Storm. I went 1 and 3. I beat Storm, but Elves is insanely difficult to win, and Affinity is a little better than Elves, but not by a lot. You have to have Stony Silence, or you're just dead. So game 1 is almost auto loss. Games 2 and 3, you have to lean on that Stony Silence. You have to aggressively mulligan for it. And if you don't, you lose. And sometimes even if you do, you lose. So That's how that went. But I got to run it back, and I went to another local store to play Modern the following night, and I ended up going 3-0-1. Me and the other 3-0 drew and split the prize pool, so I ended up placing first. So it worked out all right. In that tournament, I got to play against a different variety of decks. I played against Grixis Control at one point, Goblins, and the third deck was actually a very local player, Brandon, who always plays Amulet Titan. And I have some pretty good beat stories for Death and Taxes player in that tournament. First and foremost, I played Goblins round 1. My opponent, very nice dude, was talking about how he's newer. He's been playing Magic for a while, but just getting more and more competitive with it. And we had a good conversation about Goblins and how it's like the gateway deck for budget Modern, and how, even though it's one of those decks that's not positioned well most of the time, it can certainly do well out of nowhere. I had the opportunity to sideboard in Orzhov Pontiff and blew him out with a Pontiff. Blew up like 4 guys, took 2 damage from his 2 Rabble Masters, or not Rabble Masters, 2 Goblin Guides that survived, and then just started beating him down with Golem tokens from, why can't I think of the names of my own Magic cards? Jeez, from Blade Splicers. I'm very tired right now, sorry. But yeah, I just got to use Blade Splicers and start beating him down with Golems. And then game 3, because he had won the first game, I also had boarded in Burnt-in Forge Tenders, and I mulliganed to 6, and my scry was a Burnt-in Forge Tender, and so I got to play that on turn 1, and then I drew another one the next turn. That card really shuts down Goblins, and I always keep them in my sideboard because Burn at any given moment could just be the best deck of the tournament. So I always have Burnt-in Forge Tender on deck, and it really shuts Goblins down. So I got to beat that opponent, and then I played against Brandon, who was on Amulet Titan, and game 1, he kind of just crushed me. He got the quick prime time and 20'd me out of nowhere. I had him down to 4, and then he just killed me. Game 2, I won. He had a slow draw. I kind of just had an aggressive draw and played the aggro route and was able to win that way. In game 3, interestingly enough, he resolved a Fire Spout. And then, after wiping my board, he left me with a lone, like, Thraben Inspector. And I kind of flooded out hard. So I keep drawing lands, and one of the lands that I have in my hand is a Tech Edge. Another land that I played a few turns before was a Tech Edge. So my opponent Brandon, which I probably will never live this down, or I will never let him live this down even, he kind of starts to go off on a turn, and he Summoner's Pacts for prime time. Doesn't have the gas to fully kill me. Hits me for like 9 or 12 or whatever the math ends up being, and passes the turn. He passed the turn with 3 of the bounce lands in play, and the land that gives primetime vigilance and haste. And I untap with a Tech Edge in play. I play another Tech Edge, and I kill 2 of his bounce lands, and he can't pay for a pact. So I Tech Edge my way into stealing a victory from a deck that is really hard to play against, that just wins randomly. So that was a lot of fun. I also got to play against Grixis Control and got to kind of play the Thalia game and just tax my opponent out of the game, which was awesome. So that felt good, coming back from a 1-3 to go 3-0. Feels pretty good. Either way, I am playing some more Magic now than I was a few weeks back, which feels good. I have a team event coming up Saturday in about 6 days from now, where I'll be playing Legacy Death and Taxes with my buddy Sean, who will be playing Standard, and we have a third player, local player named Josh, who's a very solid player, playing Modern. Still got to settle on what he's playing, but whatever he decides on, I'm cool with, as long as it's not an embarrassing deck to bring to a tournament, which I don't think he would, but I look forward to that. And then we're just getting ready for the Star City Open in Atlanta. Either way, that's been what I've been going through. That's been what I've been doing the last couple weeks. The season's pretty much done with for this season of PPTQs. We didn't get there for the team event. It's unfortunate. I wanted to. I was able to go to 5 tournaments, 4 of which were qualifying for that one. And not quite there. But next season, we're going to keep trying. I'm going to try to take down one of these PPTQs and get an invite one way or another. Either way, guys, I appreciate you for bearing with me and hanging in there and allowing me to continue to make videos for you guys and conversing even more. I'm going to go now because I sound terrible. I'm very tired, but I appreciate it. If you guys could leave a comment down below, let me know what's up. Tell me how bad I am at Magic for punting. Tell me what you guys think of Masters 25 Limited and how you guys are feeling about Dominaria. That's up next. After this weekend's tournament, I got to start working on some Dominaria standard decks. I have one really good idea in mind for one that I'm kind of excited about because it's totally different from what I usually do. So look out for that. And just keep coming back. And like I said, hit me up on Twitter at MTGBiggie for more current updates than I'm able to give here on YouTube all the time. Either way, guys, I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from all of you again very soon.